Now let's talk about Kumonga. So as with many of the other creatures in GSP, this guy is smaller than previous incarnations, and again, they've turned the color vibrance all the way up. Well, it's fine. They're first seen when the Otaki guys investigate a washed-up Manda, and Goro explains that it was probably killed by Godzilla, but you do wonder whether these things were parasitic in nature and came out of the Manda's body. Do you think parasites can get parasites? Wait, hold on here. We're going down a whole parasite inception rabbit hole here. Let's just stop before it gets out of hand. They're first seen nesting in these bizarre purple structures that they've built upon this warehouse. And they've webbed up a bunch of unsuspecting humans to presumably drain of their fluid, in the same way that spiders do with flies. This is another creature that I really like the design of. I love that they don't really have feet, but that their legs just kind of go down into a razor-sharp point, which if you think about it, it's probably not the most practical thing. What would happen in real life is as soon as it hit some kind of soft terrain, this thing would pierce into it and then quite quickly get bogged down in mud and all kinds of shit. But damn, does it look cool. I love these mandibles that they have around their mouths, and the way that they're squared off makes them look manufactured actually and robotic rather than organic. And something about them really reminds me of samurai swords if you could bend a samurai sword round a few times. You know what I mean? And in this shot you see how there's a second set of mandibles. So you've got the samurai sword things, they open up, and then in there you've got these, I don't know how to describe them, but they open up to reveal like its mouth hole. Their rounded bodies look really like a shell of a beetle would. And at times the body shape and structure really reminds me of a trilobite or a horseshoe crab or something like that. And the underside have these kind of gill things like the underside of a mushroom has, and apparently they're called lamellas, and they're used for distributing spores. How many of these creatures there are in any given nest is unknown, but it's a lot, and each nest contains different kinds of Kumongas too, I guess in the same way that an ant colony has soldiers, queens, flying ants, etc. There are Kumangas, which have longer blades on their front legs, reminiscent of Gigan's blades. Then there are the flying ones called Hanengas, which have these sort of drill arms reminiscent of Megalon, and Zenbungas, which are a combination of both the aforementioned, featuring the wings from the Hanengas and the giant blades from the Kumangas. And if they are like an ant colony, it begs the question, is there a queen? Again, this is another species that doesn't seem to need the red dust at all, but the most interesting thing about these guys to me is the fact that when Jet Jaguar starts getting cuddy with the Spear of Anguirus again, these creatures' neon blue blood starts to twitch around and coalesce and form shapes. At first, just kind of like tendrils, like the fucking sea thing from the abyss. Wait, did this water creature give its consent for this? Because otherwise, you know, these days... unconsented penetration! Eventually, it even forms this, which is definitely reminiscent of Hedorah, which if you remember was a creature literally made of shit from the 71 movie Godzilla vs. Hedorah. If you've no idea what I'm talking about, do you remember Superman 4 where it's suddenly turned into an ecologically conscious movie?
I'm going to rid our planet of all nuclear weapons.
Superman had to fight like Radiation Man or Nuclear Man, whatever he was called. Oh, did you see they just punched him in the spine? Well, the same thing happens in Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I don't remember it particularly well. I saw it at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was half asleep. But basically, Hedorah is a monster made up of humanity's pollution, and Godzilla has to fight it. Oh, look at him there, wallowing in scat. And of course, the moral of the story is don't fucking pollute so much, you messy bastards. But anyway, back to GSP. I do wonder if Kumonga's ability to do this has any connection to Godzilla's ability to form tendrils out of its own blood, as we'll see in his episode. But then you would have thought that if Kumongas aren't archetype-based life forms like the other kaiju, maybe it's just coincidence. One interesting thing that I did notice is that all the different variants of this species do have the same BD4 blue eyes, and then behind that they have these yellow things, which I didn't think too much about at first, but then when you see the Hedorah, they have these yellow eyes as well, so I don't know if there's a connection there somewhere. Anyway, it's thanks to the Kumongas that we get one of my favorite sequences in GSP, with Jet Jaguar going acrobatics crazy with the Spear of Anguirus and sparks flying everywhere every time the spear collides with one of the drill arms. It gives us some pretty amazing visuals. The last we see of them is when the Otaki guys and Jet Jaguar escape on a boat, and there's plenty of them left still alive here. So what happened to them? Were they affected by the blue crystals when Archetype reached its 13th phase? Well, as they don't seem as reliant on the red dust as the Rodan did, for example, probably not, so they're probably still running around out there. But then again, they don't seem that difficult to kill, so maybe you just get some pest control guys in there to mop it all up and problem solved. So guys, get in the comments below and let me know what you think of this incarnation of Kumonga, and let me know what your top 5 GSP creatures are. Obviously, subscribe if you haven't already, because up next is Salunga.